We've all been sold the same lie, that retirement is the financial cliff. You work for 40 years, you stop getting a paycheck, and then you just watch your bank account slowly bleed out until the end. It's a terrifying thought, right? But what if I told you that for thousands of Americans, the exact opposite is happening? They aren't just surviving after retirement. They're actually getting richer every single year they don't work. I'm talking about people like my neighbor Steve. He retired 5 years ago, and last week at a barbecue, he told me something that honestly blew my mind. He said, "I have more money in the bank today than the day I quit my job." And that's when I realized something interesting. Retirement isn't always the end of wealth building. For many people, it's actually when the real wealth growth begins. Today, I'm going to show you the hidden reasons why retirement can actually make you richer, not poorer. And one of these reasons is something most people completely miss until it's too late. Now, before we go deeper, let's be clear about one thing. This isn't magic, this is simply math. And it's math that often starts working in your favor once you step away from the 9 to 5 grind. Most people think their expenses will stay the same after retirement, but in reality, something surprising happens. Many of the costs tied to working suddenly disappear. Think about everything you spend just to go to work: gas, commuting, car maintenance, work clothes, expensive lunches, because you're too tired to cook. Over the years, those costs quietly eat a large portion of your income. But when you retire, that entire category of spending can vanish almost overnight. And that's just the beginning. By the time most Americans reach retirement age, the biggest financial responsibilities are often already behind them. The kids are grown and financially independent. The mortgage is either paid off or close to it, and you're no longer saving a huge portion of your income for retirement. For decades, you were putting maybe 10 or 15% of your income into investment accounts. But once you retire, that saving requirement disappears. Suddenly, your cost of living can drop dramatically, sometimes by 30 or even 40%, while your lifestyle stays almost the same. And that extra money, it stays invested, which means your investments have more time and more capital to keep growing. But the real game changer for many retirees is the tax system. When you're working, taxes come straight out of your paycheck before you even see the money. But in retirement, something interesting happens. You get much more control over where your income comes from, instead of one paycheck. Retirees often have multiple income sources. For example, they might withdraw some money from a 401k, a little from a Roth IRA, and collect Social Security benefits. Because of how tax brackets work in the United States, this strategy can dramatically reduce the amount of taxes someone pays. A retiree might be spending $80,000 a year, but on paper, it might look like they only earned $30,000 or $40,000. And that means a much lower tax bill. In a way, it's like giving yourself a raise without doing any extra work. Then there's the most powerful force in investing: compounding. Most people believe compounding only benefits young investors. But the truth is, compounding becomes incredibly powerful later in life when your portfolio is already large. Imagine someone retiring with a $1 million investment portfolio. If that portfolio grows at 7% per year, that's $70,000 of growth in just 1 year. That's the equivalent of a full salary for many people. And the person didn't have to work a single day to earn it. Over time, those gains can continue to stack on top of each other, allowing wealth to grow even after retirement. Another factor many retirees take advantage of is downsizing. After the kids move out, a large family home often becomes unnecessary. So many retirees sell their bigger house and move into a smaller home, a condo, or even relocate to a lower tax state. Sometimes that single decision can unlock hundreds of thousands of dollars in home equity. Money that was previously locked inside a house suddenly becomes liquid capital that can be invested or used to support a more flexible lifestyle. And for many people, that financial shift alone dramatically increases their net worth. Of course, retirement still requires planning and discipline. Markets can fluctuate, inflation exists, and financial mistakes can still happen. But the idea that retirement automatically means running out of money is simply not always true. For people who plan well, control their spending, and allow their investments to compound, retirement can actually become a powerful phase of wealth growth. Instead of money slowly disappearing, it can continue to expand year after year. And sometimes, like my neighbor Steve, POPL, and sometimes, like my neighbor Steve, people discover they actually have more wealth 5 years after retirement than the day they left their job. So if you're worried about retirement, take a deep breath. Focus on building strong investments, reducing debt, and allowing compounding to do its work, because the future might be much brighter than you think. And who knows, one day your story might sound a lot like Steve's. But there's another powerful reason many retirees continue getting richer, and it has to do with something most people completely underestimate: time. When you're working full time, your life is often built around your job. Your energy, your attention, and most of your daily focus go toward earning a paycheck. But when retirement begins, something interesting happens. People suddenly gain something extremely valuable: time and mental clarity. And with that extra time, many retirees begin managing their finances more carefully than they ever did while working. They review their investments more often. They reduce unnecessary expenses. They make smarter financial decisions. In many cases, this alone can significantly improve long-term wealth. Think about it this way. When you were working full-time, you might have ignored small financial leaks, subscriptions you forgot to cancel, expensive habits you never questioned, convenience purchases that slowly drained your income. But once people retire, they often become much more aware of where their money is going. And those small improvements can quietly add thousands of dollars back into their yearly budget. Another surprising factor is that many retirees continue earning income even after they officially stop working. But instead of stressful full-time jobs, they often choose flexible income sources. Some retirees start consulting in their old industry. Others start small, online businesses. Some teach, mentor, or freelance in areas where they already have decades of experience. And because they no longer depend on that income to survive, it becomes what many call bonus money. Money that can be invested instead of spent. And when that extra income gets invested, it accelerates wealth growth even further. There's also something else happening that many people overlook. Spending habits tend to stabilize in retirement. During your working years, spending often increases because life keeps expanding. You buy bigger homes, you upgrade cars, you pay for children's education, you deal with unexpected family expenses. But after retirement, life usually becomes simpler. Many retirees realize they no longer need constant upgrades or expensive status purchases. Instead of chasing bigger and better things, they focus more on experiences, hobbies, and time with family. And ironically, this simpler lifestyle often ends up being far less expensive than the one they had while working. But perhaps the most powerful advantage retirees have is something that younger investors struggle with: patience. When you're younger, market volatility can feel terrifying. A market drop might make someone panic and sell their investments too early. But many retirees who have invested for decades have already experienced multiple market cycles. They've seen recessions, they've seen crashes, and they've seen recoveries. So when the market fluctuates, they are less likely to panic. They understand that long-term investing requires patience. And that calm mindset can protect their portfolio from costly emotional decisions. Then there's the reality of asset appreciation. Many retirees own assets that have been growing quietly for decades. Homes that were purchased 30 or 40 years ago may now be worth several times their original price. Investment accounts that started small may have grown into substantial portfolios thanks to decades of compounding. And even conservative investments like dividend stocks can provide steady income streams that continue increasing over time. For example, many retirees hold dividend-paying companies that increase their payouts every year. That means their income can actually rise even when they are no longer working. In other words, their money begins producing its own paycheck. And over time, those income streams can become surprisingly powerful. But perhaps the biggest mindset shift retirees experience is this. During their working years, people believe they are responsible for creating all of their income. But in retirement, they finally begin seeing the full power of their investments. Instead of trading time for money, their assets begin generating income on their behalf. And that transition can completely change how wealth grows. Of course, none of this happens by accident. People who experience this kind of financial growth in retirement usually spent years building strong habits. They saved consistently, they invested patiently, they avoided unnecessary debt, and they allowed time to do the heavy lifting. So when retirement A
System is already built, and that system keeps working, even when they no longer do. Which brings us back to the original idea we started with, the belief that retirement is a financial cliff. For some people, that fear becomes reality because they never prepared for the future. But for others, those who built smart financial foundations, retirement can actually become the most financially stable period of their lives. Instead of wealth disappearing, it continues growing. Instead of stress, there's flexibility. Instead of chasing income, they allow their investments to generate it. And sometimes, just like my neighbor Steve, they look at their accounts a few years after retiring and realize something surprising. They're actually richer than they were when they stopped working. If you found this video helpful and want more simple insights about money, investing, and financial freedom, make sure to subscribe to the channel.